But first, the issue with those stage 3 tax cuts, now all but certain to be changed, is not about who most deserves cost of living relief, but whether this is a government that can be trusted, whether the Prime Minister can be trusted, given this is his call as leader and it's his character that's on the line. Now, before winning the last election, Anthony Albanese and his Treasurer Jim Chalmers reiterated some 100 times that the stage 3 tax cuts were safe.
Labor will support all of the legislated tax cuts which are in place now. Of course, tax cuts were legislated earlier on in this term, and we've said that we won't seek to change those legislated tax cuts.
And I've said on the stage 3 tax cuts that they've been legislated. People are entitled to operate on the basis of that certainty.
These tax cuts were supported by both sides of Parliament through 2 elections. Both the PM and the Treasurer, as opposition MPs, voted for them in the Parliament. But now the people who've had to wait the longest for what was promised to them will reportedly get less, and the people who've already had their tax cuts will get more. Now, this will please the Labor left, who've never liked these tax cuts in the first place and who don't like people with aspiration. But it'll be yet another broken promise from a Prime Minister who's starting to seem incapable of being straight with voters. He promised not to touch your superannuation.
We said we would not have any major changes in superannuation, and that is certainly our intention.
Look, we said about superannuation that we would maintain the system. Australians shouldn't expect major changes to superannuation if the government changes hands.
But of course he has. He promised to cut your power bill by $275 per household per year.
Reducing power prices by $275.
By 2025, $275 a year.
$275 a year.
We'll get power prices down by $275 a year.
Instead, your bill has gone up by more than 20% on his watch. The PM promised to boost real wages, but real household income has actually fallen by as much as 8%. And he promised again and again that everyone's legislated tax cuts were safe, but they're not.
I can confirm that we haven't changed our position. We have no change to our plans. Tax cuts will happen in July.
We haven't changed our position.
I've said we haven't changed our position.
We haven't changed our position on the stage 3 tax cuts.
We have not changed our position on stage 3 tax cuts.
They've been legislated. We support them. Our position hasn't changed.
The Prime Minister and the Treasurer even put out a joint media release saying, and I quote, "An Albanese Labor government will deliver the same legislated tax relief to more than 9 million Australians as the Morrison government." Well, not anymore, it seems. And do not believe the spin that will come from Labor that the stage 3 tax cuts were somehow unfair. Now, if all stages had been delivered in the form that Labor had previously supported, that Labor had previously voted for, a taxpayer on $45,000 a year would have received a 17% tax cut, and someone on $200,000 a year would have received an 18% tax cut. And all of this would have been just the return of a decade and a half of bracket creep anyway. Now, make no mistake, this is a massive breach of faith. On top of all the other broken promises, it means that this Prime Minister and his government simply can't be trusted. Now, remember Peter Garrett's notorious statement to our own Steve Price back in 2007 when he said, "Once we get in, we'll just change it all." This is just more of the same from Labor. Make whatever promises you like to win the election and then just ignore them all anyway afterwards. Now, some commentators are telling you don't fuss, all governments break promises, and this promise was broken for something better, namely more cost of living relief for poorer taxpayers. But I tell you what, if we endlessly forgive politicians broken promises, we'll keep getting broken promises. If we don't punish the lack of integrity in our leaders, we'll always get a lack of integrity. Remember, the standard you walk past is for voters the standard you accept. And walking past this would mean giving politicians a licence to lie. This is a low act from a poor government. The PM no doubt thinks changing these tax cuts will help him in Dunkley, the seat he must hold after the untimely death of the incumbent Labor MP, Peter Murphy. I think he would be surprised because Dunkley has plenty of aspirational voters who may not currently earn $180,000 a year but would like to, and think that people should be incentivised to get ahead, to earn more, not be hit harder and harder and harder for making a go of things. Then there's those teal seats, the best off, most well-heeled seats in the country. These are the seats where changing the Stage 3 tax cuts are going to do the most damage. And where voting teal will no longer be punishing a disappointing Morrison government, but will help keep a bad Labor government in office. Losing his voice last year was politically disastrous for Anthony Albanese, but I think breaking this promise will actually be worse. Losing a referendum's one thing, but breaking a commitment your party has taken to 2 elections, that's a disgrace. And it reminds me very much of a similar broken promise that ended up sinking another Labor PM.
There will be no carbon tax under the government I lead.
They've been legislated. We support them. We stand by that.
There's no surprise to me that the Liberal Party head office is already out today reminding people that Labor PMs have form on broken promises.